Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the Upper Darby Zoning Hearing Board meeting. Today is September 30th, 2025. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand with me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get going, please bear with me. I need to make a few announcements here. First off, the board met in an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss legal issues relating to tonight's applications. There are a few continuances at issue tonight, and for each of these projects I'm going to announce, that means they will not be heard this evening. So if anyone is here for these 5 projects, those will be heard at our meeting next month, October 28th, here in this room at 7:00 p.m. That's application number 7-8 of 25 for 841 Garrett Road. That is going to be opened and continue to October 28th, 2025 at 7:00 p.m. Application 8-5 of 25 for 0 State Road. Applicant is Route 1 Land Company, LLC. That is opened and continued to October 28th, 2025 at 7:00 p.m. in this room. For those in attendance, that is the car wash application. So if anyone is here for the car wash application, that'll be here next month, not tonight. Sorry to bring you out. The next item is 9-2 of 25 for the project located at 151 South Bishop Avenue. That is going to be opened and continued to our meeting on October 28th at 7:00 p.m. 9-3 of 25 for the property at 148 Garrett Road. That is going to be opened and continued to October 28th, 2025 at 7:00 p.m. Lastly, application 9-7 of 25 for the property at 0 Bridge Street, otherwise known as 3888 Dennison Avenue. That's opened and continued to October 28th at 7:00 p.m. There's also one withdrawal. The applicant for application number 9-6 of 25 for the property at 1011 Woodside Avenue. That is withdrawn at the request of the applicant, so that will not be heard, period. I see that we have a number of folks in attendance tonight. If you are not an applicant or a witness for the applicant, there are a couple different ways that you can participate with us this evening. For every application that will be heard tonight, you can either be asked to be a party or you can make public comment. What a party means is essentially if you have some sort of a specialized interest in the application or the property, whether that's with respect to how close you are, if it's an adjacent property, if you're a neighbor, or anything like that. You can ask to be a party, and if that request is granted, then you'll basically be somewhat similar to an attorney. You'll be able to present your own evidence, cross-examine witnesses, make argument, and ultimately potentially file an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas if you're dissatisfied with the decision. I will make a request at the outset of every single application. If anyone would like to be a party, you can ask at that time and we'll discuss it. And we have some party status forms right there in the corner of the room. If you don't mind filling that out before you make that request, we would appreciate it. However, you don't have to be a party to participate. You can make public comment. At the end of every hearing tonight, once the applicant is finished with their evidence, and once the board is finished with their questions, we will ask if there's any public comment. And anyone in this room can come on up and make public comment. That is, again, your right as a resident, as a member of the public here this evening. So with that, for everyone else in attendance, we have a 3-member board this evening. I am the solicitor for the board. I do not vote. These 3 gentlemen sitting to my left are the board members tonight. And for anyone here to get the relief that you're seeking, you need at least 2 affirmative votes. So with that, we're going to go forward. We have a 5-item agenda tonight, and we are going to go forward in the order that these items are present on the agenda. So the first hearing that we'll hear is item number 9-8 of 25 for Wise Choice Management LLC at 9220 West Chester Pike. Good evening, Mr. McCreesh.
Good evening. Thank
Thank
you.
Let me, before, as you're about ready to get your witness sworn in, just going to mark a few items for the record here. Exhibit ZHB1 will be the application packet. Exhibit ZHB2 will be the proof of posting, and Exhibit ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. Mr. McCreesh, would you like to swear in your witness?
Yes, sure. Yes. Eric Wise. W-I-S-E. Spell the first two. It's A-R-R-I-C-K. Yeah, it's not Eric. I always mess it up myself. So. Eric.
All right, so, Mr. McCreesh, please, the floor is yours. Tell us what your client wants to do tonight.
Okay, so Mr. Wise is the member of the LLC, Wise Choice Management LLC. There's a row of about, I think it's 5 units that all look the same. They're side-by-side twins. They're zoned mixed-use commercial. Mr. Wise bought it in August of this year. There was a fire. He's trying to fix it up. There's just not much use for the commercial use on the first floor, and all of these units are now being used as residential on the first floor, and that's what he wants to do, have a residential unit on the first floor, which would be a 2-bedroom unit and a 3-bedroom unit on the second floor. There is street parking right out front. There's no off-street parking, but the parking would be less. The parking for the residential would be less than required for the commercial use at the same spot. So I don't think there's any parking issue. But if you, Mr. Wise, he sent some pictures to Josh of the property. I don't know if you need Josh to pull them up and see them real quick, or if that helps you. But
Sure, we can take a look at them.
yeah, how many photos did you send?
I think it's 5.
Just 5 photos?
Yeah,
Okay.
all of the first floor.
Okay, this is the first floor. Okay. And what's that picture? And this is all done by the prior owner. I guess it had been used as a residential unit by the prior owner, right?
So, and real quick, the first floor you said was used as a residential unit by the prior homeowner, or
Correct. I don't think it was.
Permitted.
I don't think it was maybe legalized, but I think. But that's how he bought it. I just want to stress that he didn't do this.
noted?
Okay. And that's just a picture of the poster. Okay, that's the outside. You can see it looks more like a house than a commercial unit anyway. And the second floor, he's working to get fixed up after the fire. When he bought it, when was the fire? Do you know?
I think 23.
20. Yeah, I remember. It's a couple of years ago. Okay.
And, just for the record, we'll mark that set of 5 photographs as Exhibit A1.
Thank you. I don't have anything else. If you would like to ask Mr. Wise any questions?
Sure, just real quick, Mr. Wise, did you obviously had a chance to hear your attorney's statements tonight, is that right?
Yes.
All right, were they true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Would you agree to adopt those statements as your testimony tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, procedural things. So if the board has any questions for Mr. Wise, I believe now would be the time.
So my only question that I have is regarding the parking. So the request for, it's a parking reduction from 4 to 2, I believe. Do you expect that the people that you're going to have in those apartments, they will use public transit, or, because usually typically, or at least like what would be your assumption as if, everybody in those apartments has a car, where would they be parking?
It's a good question. I have no idea. I mean, I guess across the street or around the corner. But there's really no other parking but on the street, because there's no private parking there.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there a rear driveway to this? Okay. So there's no rear access to the, like, vehicle access, not like,
No.
okay, thank you.
trash pickup, is that done by the township or done by,
It's done by the
You-
township.
if it was commercial, it should not have been picked up.
See, if it was commercial, it should have not been picked up.
It's mixed use right now, so there was one residential and a commercial on the first, so there would be, is mixed right now. Commercial on the first and residential on the second.
Okay. Go into executive
Any other questions? All right. Is there any public comment related to this application this evening? Okay. Seeing none, at this point, I believe it would be appropriate to close the record and either make a motion or perhaps take a moment to go into executive session, whatever the board's pleasure may be.
Like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve this application.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. And
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
congratulations, your application's been approved. You'll get a written decision from my office in 45 days.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
very
good night.
much.
All right. So with that, we're going to move forward to the next application, which is number 9-4 of 25 for the property located at 2316 Garrett Road. Good evening, Mr. Shafkowitz.
Good evening, Mr. Solicitor.
All right. Just briefly here, is there any member of the public tonight who is interested in requesting party status for the property located at 2316 Garrett Road? Seeing none, all right, let me mark a few exhibits. ZHB1 will be the application packet, ZHB2 will be the proof of posting, and ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. I think now would be a good time to get the applicant sworn, just to
Yep.
get that out of the way.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that
Yes. MD Saidujaman. SAYDUZZAMAN.
Sure. Shafkowitz is SHAFKOWITZ. You bet. Good evening, members of the board. As noted, my name is David Shafkowitz, here on behalf of the owner applicant of 2310 to 2316 Garrett Road. This is particularly, application is a reference to 2316 Garrett Road. I think the board might be familiar, a few months back, we were here for this particular property for a similar relief with the consideration of potentially putting a convenience store in this property. The convenience store is probably not the best use for this property, so my client went out seeking other tenants for this particular use and was able to come up with a barbershop use related to this property. As you may recall, the parcel at issue is about 1,200 square feet, or the space about 1,200 square feet. It's the first floor of a mixed-use property as well. Upstairs are 2 apartments.
Yeah, residential.
2 apartments upstairs, the commercial space is downstairs. And as the board, I know is well aware, under the overlay district, the commercial use is permitted in the first floor, but office and/or restaurant, I think, are the 2 uses that are proposed. However, I think we had explained to the board last time we were here that there was a prior commercial use on the first floor of a karate studio, which I guess arguably would be a non-conforming use as it relates to the overlay district. We're proposing to go from that type of use to this barbershop use, which I think would be of a lesser grade, so to speak, under the zoning ordinance, and may otherwise be permitted as converting from one non-conforming use to the other. Nevertheless, this type of use should be less intense than certainly the convenience store and definitely the karate studio. We suspect that we'll have hours from about 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 3 to 4 employees at one time. Not to discriminate in any way, but it's mostly going to be geared towards men. Men tend to spend less time in the chair than women. So we hope that the fact that we don't have any off-street parking, that the on-street parking could be utilized easily, along with whatever walk-ups from the community that we may have. I do have some, just for the board, I know you're familiar with the site, but just maybe for the record, some photos from Google Earth that'll show street view and we don't really have a layout yet of these, how the chairs might be configured. But we don't anticipate, besides maybe the 3 to 4 employees, it's not like we'd have a reception or we'd have like somebody who washes hair. It'll just be the barbers, so to speak, on site.
Thank you.
So for the record, the applicant passed up a packet with, how many pages is this? One, two,
I think it's 3 sheets.
3 sheets. So it's going to be marked as Exhibit A1. It's a collection of 3 photographs.
So in summary, what the applicant is seeking, and as I mentioned about this possibility of considering it as converting from one non-conforming use to another, that's permitted under section 550-48 of the zoning ordinance. Alternatively, the variance is being requested or pursuant to 550-8 to permit the barber shop in the overlay district, and in what is the underlying district being R1, and 550-33.a to permit 0 off-street parking, and I think based on our calculations, 5 would otherwise be required. MD is with me. I can ask him to just, as we do, say, MD, you were here during the course of my presentation to the board.
Yes,
Is everything I presented to the board true and accurate?
yes,
And if you were to testify tonight, would you adopt that as your own
yes.
testimony? And MD's here available to certainly ask any questions as well as myself on the application.
Thank you very much. Does the board have any questions?
So not necessarily a question, just more of, because I know this application, we had a similar application for this property, and we obviously had concerns with the convenience store regarding the smoke products. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate the applicant going back after we denied that to find a better use. My only question is related to the barbershop. Do you know if there are any other barbershops on this like shopping commercial strip?
No,
Okay, so this would be the only one in that area, so to
Yes.
speak. All right, thank you.
Are you saying no, you don't know, or no, there's no other barber shops on that commercial
no other
strip?
barber shop in this area. It's only like, it's on Acme, which is further like, further is like Upper Derby High School, Lansdowne and I think Lansdowne and State Road area, which is, on the commercial areas, but not behind, not in these areas at all.
I have a question. What is your time of hours that you'll be open and
Like 8
operate?
a.m. to 8 p.m. So people can, if someone go to the, office, they need to do haircut, so they can go early in the morning, or if you want to do after the office hours, they can come and like say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
And this is available for women as well?
Not women, only for men.
Only for men?
Yes, because women's takes time, it takes more hours. So you wanna do like, like since it's off-street parking, I don't want anyone to come here to wait for hour, like women usually do colors, all other stuff, it takes hour, 2 hours. Men usually it takes 20 to 25 minutes, so it's this. So if it's like since it's off-street parking, so they can come and go.
What I would say, it's going to be geared towards men. Of course, if women want to come for a haircut, that would be
Yes.
fine.
It's not specifically for men, like if you want a haircut, but we're not gonna have all of the service for women. It takes, reduce the hours and time.
Give me, you probably already answered this. How many chairs of operation?
It's particular, like, it's not like maybe 6, 7, 8 chairs, depend on how many people come, but we're gonna have like 2, 3 barbers. If someone come, they will just do that, they have to wait, and some reception areas, they can wait for the reception areas,
And will this be 7 days a week?
7 days a week,
Okay.
yes.
What are your hours of operation?
Can you repeat again?
Your hours of operation?
8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
That's it.
Is there any public comment with respect to this application? All right, seeing none, I believe we'll close the record unless the applicant has anything else to add.
Nope, that's the gist of our application. Thanks for board listening.
Perfect. So we'll close the record, and I believe a motion may be appropriate.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, sir. Your application's been approved. You'll get a written decision from my office within 45 days. I hope you have a good night. So the next application will be number 9-1, New Hope Property LLC for the property located at 600 Garrett Road. Familiar face. Before we get started, is there anyone here who would like to request party status for application 9-1 of 25? Seeing none, let me mark a few exhibits here. ZHB1 will be the application package. ZHB2 will be the proof of posting, and ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. Good evening again, Mr. Shafkowitz. All right.
I think I turned that off by accident. Everybody can hear me okay? I guess the easiest way to start this one is the board may be aware, and maybe what we should do is add as an exhibit to our presentation is the prior zoning decision issued by this board in May of 2023 with regard to this application. As the board is well aware, your common practice is put a time limit on those decisions. But some of these applications that then require a land development process kind of get to the point where that time limitation does expire. And we are essentially here tonight to ask the board to consider either renewing or extending our approvals with some modifications. So just by way of background, as the board might remember, our project is 600 Garrett Road. It's the existing, what used to be a car dealership. It's now kind of a storage facility, 3-story building. The applicant is proposing to essentially remodel and readapt, reuse the entire structure, adding a 4th floor for some first-floor commercial and 27 one-bedroom apartments. The first-floor commercial was originally approved at 3,180 square feet. Since the board was gracious enough to work with us in seeing the vision of this application and moving this project forward, we have been pursuing our land development approvals. Luckily, we've been recently received, I think maybe 2-3 months ago, a recommendation from the Planning Commission for both preliminary and final approval. During that design phase, though, a couple of adjustments had to be made, and that's what Mr. Mill will be here to explain. Particularly, as the board may recall, when the decision was granted, there was a shortage of parking. And one of the reliefs that we got was be able to, the board considered a special exception for transit-oriented parking, and we were able to get a reduction. One of the considerations was because we thought at the time we could fit 13 parking spaces, right, on the first floor for the residents. And then we got a lease with our neighbor for 10 additional parking spaces. During the design phase, and in order to work through the issues with the first floor of the building, 2 things happened. One is we lost one of the parking spaces because of the size of the parking that the township engineer had recommended. And 2, we had to add a loading area, which we didn't talk about previously. However, the neighbor that we've talked to, and I have a copy of the lease with me, who was helping us with the 10 additional parking spaces, has agreed to lease to us 11 parking spaces to help address that issue. But there's, of course, another twist, which is good in our favor. Scott, I'll ask Scott to briefly explain after you get sworn in, Scott, of course, that our commercial area did reduce. So in order to get elevator, all the other equipment in kind of refurbishing this building, which is turning out to be a little bit bigger of a task, but it's going to be a beautiful project when it's done, we lost some commercial space. So we're down to about 1,800 and change in commercial space, which in turn, our parking requirement went down. So which essentially Scott would tell you by about 3 spaces. So even though we lost 1 interior, we gained 1 exterior, our requirement was reduced by 3. So for all intents and purposes, I don't know if I have to reestablish or talk about the variances that were approved and the special exception was approved, but that zoning decision was provided in our packet, which I was part of Board Exhibit 1. So we would ask the board what you would deem appropriate, whether it's an extension from today for another year of our zoning approval or an extension from, it was May of 23, I think, when it was originally granted, maybe to allow us to take it to May of '26. The only reason I asked for that is that we are, I think, maybe Josh can confirm, be going before Township Council within the next 60 days, more or less, for hopefully final approval. And by the time we submit, we got to go through then building permit process. Our final plan design and permit process will probably take us about 6 months. And then by that time, hopefully we can get a shovel in the ground, assuming the board is amenable. One other item for discussion was the loading area. We, in the interior, in the first floor, and Scott will show you that in a minute, we added a loading area. The zoning ordinance does have a requirement the loading area be X size. Ours is a little bit smaller, but it's intended to be the right size for the types of trucks that we expect would allow for deliveries. And I think the part that I also like about that is that knowing the side streets that we're on, is that if the Amazon delivery or that type of delivery can get into our building and drop the packages inside, we don't have them sitting on the street with the blinkers on and blocking traffic, that kind of thing. So having said that, Scott, I do want you to get sworn, and then unless the board has any questions, and then,
I do. Scott Mill, it's M-I-L-L.
and Scott, can you just briefly remind the board about your background and involvement in the project?
Sure, I am a registered landscape architect in Pennsylvania. I'm a registered landscape architect in Pennsylvania. I've been licensed since 2002. I've worked on several commercial, residential, mixed-use projects within the Bucks, Montgomery counties, provided expert testimony also several times within Bucks, Montgomery, Delaware County. This is my second time here, so about it.
Recognized as an expert before this board.
I was, yes.
Just by way of background, I don't know, Mr. Solicitor, if it's necessary to have him.
It's not
recognized.
necessary. We'll be happy to, what are you offering Mr. Mills an expert in?
We're in landscape architect, site design, and planning.
He will be accepted. Thank you.
Scott, I guess first and most importantly, except for the three items, small items that I mentioned, is the plan substantially in conformance with the original zoning decision?
Yes. It's, the footprint of the building basically is the entire site. We haven't proposed any changes to that. The layout is generally the same. There are 2 retail spaces that both front out onto Garrett. As David mentioned, they have been reduced in size due to the architect kind of further refining the footprint and the needs, mechanicals, things like that. The one change we did make, previously we had ingress coming in off of Walnut and then extending down, as you're looking at the page, to the south towards Shelbourne, and that's where the egress was. In further refinement and working with the architect, the difference between the interior floor elevation and the grade at Shelbourne was just too drastic of a difference to make that work. So we had to swing that egress out, and it also comes out onto Walnut. So that was probably the biggest change.
And with the change of the interior design, I don't know if you brought that one. Do you have that plan with you? Just explain to the board how the interior layout had changed. For the first floor, the second, third, and fourth floor, which would be the apartments, and we had about 9 units per floor, those are not changing.
Yeah, so if you want.
Yeah.
So if you're oriented, similar to how the site plan is oriented, it would be this way with Garrett at the top. Although the architect labeled Garrett along the side, that's Walnut. And then you have Shelbourne down at the bottom. The 2 retail spaces at the front along Garrett Road. They both measure 920 square feet, as David mentioned. That's a reduction in the overall retail space by about 1,600 square feet, therefore a reduction in the parking requirement. There's an illustration of a car entering the site through one of the existing bays. From there, we turn left, come down. There's 12 angled parking spaces, including, if you're looking at the numbering, space number 5 is an ADA accessible space. Because it's angled parking all the way down with a 17.5-foot, give or take, aisle width. And then it swings around and exits again out onto Walnut. If you look where the vehicle enters the site, in a little bit and up to the right is the loading area that David mentioned. The requirement for zoning is a space 14 by 50, which would be adequate for a much larger box truck or even a small tractor trailer. Due to limitations, primarily with the access doors, can only go so high with a truck. A truck of that size would never be able to get into this site anyway, so there's really no need for a loading space of that size. So what we've provided is a space 11 feet wide by 22 feet in length, which is adequate for some of the smaller delivery trucks. Pickup truck size can easily get in there and maneuver in and then be able to exit without any problem.
Thanks, Scott. So, Mr. Chair, I think that would be the gist of our application for tonight is for the, considering that, except for what we discussed, which I like to think are kind of minor adjustments that we're able to recapture, that nothing else has changed, the same conditions that have existed that warranted the prior approval. We'd ask the board for their consent to extend that approval with the caveat that one condition change from instead of providing 13 interior, we provide 12, as long as we've got 11 off-site, which is actually the property next door, which we were able to secure, and then the reduction in the loading area. That's it.
Thank you very much. Real quick here, I'm just going to mark the plan that the applicant provided as Exhibit A1. Now, the one thing real briefly here, the request tonight is for a variance for 12 parking spaces on the property, not 13. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. The application requested 13, so 13 was advertised. So my question is, would the applicant like to amend that down to 12? And obviously, any deficiencies in advertising, you would be accepting the risk of that.
Yes.
That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think the same might hold true in talking to Josh with regard to the loading area, that we did advertise this requesting several variances, so I think the dimensional nature of changing the loading area from what is required to what is being proposed, we would ask for that variance as well, but also run, to the extent that it may have not been properly advertised, we'll.
And just so I understand, what is the actual request for the dimensions of the loading area?
Scott?
So the requirement is 14 feet wide by 50 feet in length, and we're requesting 11 feet wide by 22 feet in length.
And again, the reason for that was exactly what type of vehicles you're going to be expecting to use this loading area?
Correct. There are certain limitations, the biggest being clearance through the garage door opening. So it'll limit, by virtue of that, the size of the trucks and vehicles that can go in and out.
So, Mr. Shafkowitz, the same thing I'm just going to request or ask with this. If you're amending your application tonight to request relief for the 11 by 22 loading area instead of the 14 by 50 that's required, are you amending your application to request that variance?
Yes.
And you understand that obviously that has not been advertised publicly or posted on the property.
Correct.
And you understand that if the board were to look favorably on that request and grant that variance, and I'm not sure what the board will do, that the applicant will be essentially incurring any potential adverse impact or adverse liability for an appeal regarding deficient advertising.
Absolutely.
Okay, just making sure the applicant understands that. Is that your client right next to you, the applicant?
Yes.
All right, perhaps we need to get him sworn briefly. Or
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is true?
Yes.
all right. And sir, you understand that because of the fact you're amending your application here in person and that has not been advertised, that you bear the risks associated with any deficient advertising.
Yes.
Okay. So just real quick, I just want to make sure I understand everything. So generally speaking, the project looks very similar to the last time it was before this board when they granted relief on May 23rd of 2025. I just wanted to talk about the differences, the specific differences with regard to the relief. Previously, 13 on-site spaces were proposed, and now it's 12. Is that correct?
That was on-site space,
On-site.
13 on-site,
On-site.
now we're at 12, correct.
Off-site, previously it was 7, now it's 11.
It
Right.
was 10.
10, now
Now it's
11.
11.
Okay, so you made that
So
change.
the net total is still 23. It was 23, you had the 13 plus 10, now we're at 12 plus 11, so net of 23. As David mentioned, the requirement, because we've reduced the retail area, the requirement has also been reduced. So the gap between what's required and what's provided has tightened up a bit.
And in looking at the prior decision, I observe there's a few different conditions here. The first condition was that the applicant shall maintain a lease for 10 off-site parking spaces, which the applicant has a lease for 11 spaces. The second condition was that the applicant shall investigate and perform any applicable remediation related to the prior uses of the subject property. Can you explain that briefly and whether the applicant has complied or intends to comply with that particular condition?
I think that has to do with any potential environmental issues. Yeah, I don't think we've discovered any existing environmental issues. I think there was just some concern. But naturally, as we now, once the approvals are set, I think our phase ones have not revealed any issues, but to the extent anything has to be remediated or addressed during the development process, we'll take care of those. That would still remain.
And the third condition, perhaps it might need to explain this a little, so the applicant shall make a continuing effort to secure an additional 7 off-site parking spaces. Is the applicant still making any attempts to get extra parking, or is it the applicant's position that now with the lesser retail use, that's no longer necessary?
I would think that based on the reduction in the parking that would be needed, that 7 would probably be reduced to 4. And my client is still working with securing that in the area. So,
Okay.
and we hope that by the time we get to building permit, we'll have that addressed as well.
All right. I appreciate that. If Mr. Shafowitz, if you could just have your client just attest to the statements that you made, and I think we'll open up for questions.
Again, Danny, you were present during the course of the testimony both I presented and Mr. Mill presented.
Yes.
Do you believe that the testimony presented was true and accurate?
Yes.
And you would adopt that testimony as your own if you had testified
Yes.
tonight? Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. I believe now will be the time if the board has any questions of either the applicant or Mr. Mill.
Does the applicant have a depiction of what this used to look like before these proposed changes that you can share with the board so we can,
Are you talking in terms of like architectural renderings or the interior?
whatever this is considered,
The first
do
floor.
we have what it looked like before?
I don't know. If you want to go up there, it might be a little easier.
Yeah, if that's all you have, we can have it up here. Is that okay? We have it up here?
So that was what was presented before. That bottom picture there shows the retail spaces. You can see they're much bigger. And then the parking came in off of Walnut and then out on the Shelburne.
Thank you.
And Dave, can you do me a favor and just make sure that I get a copy of this electronically after tonight?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to mark that Exhibit A2, which would be the prior site plan,
Yeah, our first floor plan will,
prior first floor plan. Sounds good.
Scotty, you'll get. Okay. Okay, then I must have it.
So, do you mind if I ask a question? Yeah. So, this actually brings up an interesting question. I'm just curious. In the original plan, the exit for the parking lot was on Shelburne. What was the determination to put both entrance and exit onto Garrett?
So if you're in the building, that first floor elevation is at a basically a consistent elevation of the same as what's along Walnut. And as you go,
Oh, sorry, Walnut, my bad.
if you go down Shelburne, the road actually drops down.
I think
as
this
you
should
move
be, this
away
must be late for
from
Walnut.
Walnut. So by the time you get to where that would have exited, it was too much of a difference between the grade of Shelburne down here and the internal floor up here to make that transition work. And we didn't come to that conclusion until we had good survey information and a good understanding of the architecturals. So with Walnut being a fairly consistent elevation along, it made sense then, rather than have it come out to Shelburne, exit out onto Walnut.
And I guess the priority was to make sure that the storefronts were facing Garrett
Correct.
instead of reconfiguring so that they would face Walnut, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Being that Garrett is more of the higher level, foot traffic and vehicular traffic, from an exposure standpoint, for people coming in and wanting to shop, it made sense.
I'm sure my colleagues are going to have a bunch of other questions, so I'm not going to, I'll wait till the end to ask some more of mine. But I did have a question about if there was any proposed use for the, basically I'm assuming it's going to just be a brick wall on Walnut. If there was any plans to, because, you know, the configuration changed, so I don't know if the renderings have changed at all.
Architecturally, really nothing is being proposed to change from what we originally presented.
Okay.
This kind of gives you an
But how's
idea
it-
of what it looked like and what they were thinking. So this was Exhibit 2 from the prior hearing.
Mhm.
The upper left corner is kind of, if you're standing at the intersection of Garrett and Walnut here, Walnut going down here, kind of shows along the side. There are a couple windows along Walnut that would allow you to see, and we're proposing some amenities along Walnut, you know, for pedestrians.
Okay.
and
So it's not just going to be a blank brick wall?
Correct.
Okay.
Besides the floors are all windows.
Oh, so but on the first floor, yes, brick wall.
First floor, we anticipate to create that architectural interest that you're, I know.
Oh, I
you're
guess I
concerned
can't
about.
see it from here,
Yeah,
so.
maybe hard to see, but it's interesting because the first floor, I think, is garage now.
Yeah.
right? And it's the upper floors that tend to be a little bit bland, and our change is to, you know, do the all windows more or less to give it that loft feel and that kind of old manufacturing type facility look. But yeah, and I think, I wasn't sure, but I think the prior decision even asked us to be consistent with these architectural plans
Yeah.
in our design, and obviously that would still hold true for going forward because we're excited to do this, yeah.
Yes, and yeah, we definitely appreciate, you know, the investment in our community. This is just a question, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, just groundbreaking, because you guys are asking for an extension. What is the timeline for, like, in the case that you guys were approved, that like construction would begin?
Yeah, I think because the nature of this building and with adding the fourth floor and the architectural work that needs to go into the building permit, it could take an architect anywhere between 3 and 6 months to actually get all the plans together, which, you know, is not just designing layouts for the apartments, but all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, what we refer to as the MEP plans. That takes a while, heating, air conditioning, all that stuff. So once that's in, then we submit to the building department. Hopefully within 30, 60 days, it gets approved. And I know the acquisition of the property is taking place this month. So we'd be very anxious to get construction started as soon as the building permit can be approved. So
Just want to
I
make
think
sure you guys don't,
realistically, it'd be spring, summer next year.
okay, just want to make sure you guys don't have to come back again
Yeah,
for
so,
an additional extension.
so probably maybe, it's a really good question because I would love to think we can get in the ground by May, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's like September of 26 might be a better extension than May of 26.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the record, we're going to mark the architecturals there as Exhibit A3. And Mr. Shafkowitz, you're going to get me a copy of that, correct?
Absolutely.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Clarification, with regards to your exit onto Garrett. That's right at a stoplight.
No, there is no exit onto Garrett. The entrance is on, it's a one, and that was interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the, yeah, the Garrett is wrongly labeled on that plan because Scott had mentioned the architect for some reason got him confused. But on Walnut there'll be a one-way in and then one way out. And that's what kind of led to the interior parking changing to be the angled spaces and losing the one space because that was just a better circulation overall as well. And there wouldn't be any direct access onto Garrett. And part of one of the appeals for this project was to maintain this, like gentleman mentioned, is to maintain the store frontage out to Garrett to create the streetscape that we're looking for.
So I'm not sure I considered like change of location of the egress as a minor change. And I don't know if that's the applicant's testimony, but I think we were characterizing some of these changes as minor. I'm not sure I consider that minor. But I guess my question is about the loading area. I think the applicant testimony was surrounding the size of the trucks that would be accessing it, and clearance was sort of the primary issue. But from what I can tell, the largest difference in what you're proposing, the dimensions that you're proposing and what's required, is the length of the loading area. And it seems to me that that's the biggest difference in what you're asking, I guess, relief from. Then that has nothing to do with the height of the truck. So can you sort of explain that to me, and then also talk me through like what kind of I'm trying to imagine utilizing that loading area in this plan and how that would work with the circulation of the parking lot. So can you talk through that a little bit?
Going to your first question, the length is, you're right, that's the relief, but the type of truck that would be able to get through the entrance, regardless of its length, it just wouldn't, that size truck wouldn't fit, going the 40-foot length, is that what it was?
Right, so when you're thinking of a truck that is going to be, taking advantage of a 40-foot long loading area, it's going to be a much taller truck. It's going to be a big box truck, like your big FedEx trucks or your, the bigger Amazon trucks. That type of truck isn't going to be able to fit in here anyway. Basically, the biggest truck is going to be like a pickup truck, and I don't even think that's going to happen all that often. So it'll be more of a smaller on the SUV size, where they're bringing it in, or a van of sorts, that the lower clearance vans, and those are only 17, 18 feet in length. So it'd be like parking, because parallel parking spaces are generally 22 feet in length. That's generally what they're required to be. So it'd be similar to parallel parking along a curb in that area.
And that loading area is serving the 27 apartments and the 2 retail spaces?
It'll primarily be the smaller package deliveries, or smaller deliveries if somebody's having something, small furniture delivered, that they're just picking up in a pickup truck and dropping it off, something they can kind of drop off right by the elevators and either park or remove the truck. It's not going to be your more or less daily deliveries of the larger items that you would expect to get at a retail store, or, larger move-in type trucks, things like that would probably park along the street.
That actually brings up a good question. Related to, because obviously assuming that these are apartments, right, people are going to have to move in. So what is actually the strategy then for tenants to be moving in if they're not meant to use that loading space?
If they're moving in with a larger truck, they would be looking to park out front, either along Garrett or along Walnut, as much as they can.
And you guys are still retaining street parking with the architectural plans?
On-street parking?
On-street parking. There's no on-street
No,
parking.
no.
So then they can't park there. Like,
Well,
it's a drive
for a
aisle.
loading zone, they can.
well, no, like they can't park on a drive aisle. So,
Well, no. They're not going to block traffic in
okay.
terms of that, capacity. But to the extent that they can pull along Walnut, park out there and unload from there.
Okay, so maybe I'm like, maybe I'm not explaining myself clear, or maybe I'm getting lost. And let me pull up Google Maps so that I'm not going crazy.
While he's doing that, you're envisioning, I guess, residents parking on the street and loading from the street. But this diagram, so I see 2 elevators, one along, I guess, what's cross-hatched as the dollar store on the exhibit, and then one, I guess, something that says shaft that's adjacent to the loading area. So I'm trying to understand how loading in and out of apartments can happen without using that loading area.
So there's a pedestrian door just to the north of the vehicular access along Walnut. So if you're loading from Walnut or even Shelburne, you park there, bring your stuff up along Walnut, you can access the pedestrian door, or the gates will be security coded, so somebody, if you live there, will be able to have a code and open up the gates, get in, There's an elevator back along the wall that's adjacent to the dollar store. So you'd be able to access that elevator. There's 2 stairwells, one right next to that elevator, and then one to the south end of the building, kind of in the lower left corner. So those are stairwells, but there is one elevator. So if you're not using one of the doors or gates that you can come in with a vehicle, you have the pedestrian access as well. You can get in, which would also be key coded or card access. I'm not exactly sure the security behind it, but you'll be able to gain access that way in the building.
And let's not lose fact or lose trace of the fact that these are one-bedroom apartments. That I don't, look, I wouldn't pretend to know how people would move in per se, but we're not doing a whole house move here where you would have the big moving van and it would sit outside. It's probably more of the people who are really intended for 1 or 2 people, 1 bedroom. The apartment square footage is maybe 700-800 square feet apiece. So it's not like we'd have the big moving van. It might even just be that people have the U-Haul type van that can pull underneath, can get in there and move in, or have their SUVs filled a couple of times and unloading that way. More of like the college move in, not necessarily like when we would move into a new house and have the big vans or the big trucks coming in. So I don't want to lose sight of that either. I understand the concern, but if we had the 3-bedroom apartments and those types of things, I think we would have a little bit more of a risk of that. But hopefully, look, the way we want to do this too is initially the move in and the lease up might be a little bit congested, but we don't expect apartments to then turn over as much. These are, I know they could, but it'll be mostly at the beginning and not on a constant basis where all 27 units are people moving in, moving out, that type of stuff.
So I did just want to reiterate, just for the record, that there is no street parking on Walnut. So we do not want to see people parking
Okay.
on Walnut, especially since there will not be that much time if somebody stops and parks there illegally. You're going to get into a car accident because you're going to turn off of Garrett and not have much time. So whatever your guys' plans are for those individuals, if they're not using that interior parking, it cannot be Walnut. I know that's not necessarily relevant, but it did come up in our conversation, so I just wanted to reiterate that. I guess my other question is, since we're talking about the loading area, I know you mentioned like obviously no box trucks, that's fine, I understand. But we're looking at more like the Amazon vans, like the European vans and such for packages. I agree with my colleague, I'm trying to visualize it because I guess the way it's currently configured, how once the van gets in, how it's expected to get out, because it's a parallel parking. Yeah, I guess could you go over what the overall idea visualizing the circulation of the parking lot? It just looks a little wonky, to use not a professional word.
So again, the access, the ingress, and it's one way, would be off of Walnut about 2/3 of the way up the side of the building there. You enter the site. If you're going to the loading area, you pull off to the right, kind of through that parallel parking maneuver. If you're going to park, you make the left and you come down the drive aisle and park in one of those parking spaces. I don't know at this point if there's any intent to reserve specific spaces for specific apartments. That's not part of what we're tasked to do in my office. But you do have the ability to park in one of those triangle parking spaces. So that if you're parking and want to leave, you back out of the space into the aisle, come down the aisle towards the south, and then swing to the left, and you exit towards the end of the building, towards the egress back out onto Walnut.
And one other item to mention is that pursuant to the off-street parking or off-site parking, which is actually the lot kind of next door, if somebody does have a bigger truck, so to speak, that we don't want blocking Walnut, we can have them park on that lot, load and unload, maybe, providing something similar to what hotels provide to let people gather their stuff, walk it in, go up the elevator and that kind of thing too. So we do have the opportunity to get the trucks off of the street.
And that's the A&E lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a copy of the agreement?
Yes.
I don't know. Oh, do you want to present it as evidence? Appreciate it. That's
Ah.
fine.
It's fine. Here, I'll take that first. So we'll mark this parking lease agreement as Exhibit A4. I'll pass that around to the board to take a look. Real quick, I don't mean to cut in on the board's questions. As part of the land development process, I assume that the township engineer has had the opportunity to take a look at the plans and the proposed layout. Is that correct?
Yes, we've been
right.
working with Panoni and Associates, who is a township engineer, to go through the project. We've received several review letters, went through several iterations of the plan, and reached a point where satisfied their concerns and obviously the concerns of the Township's Planning Commission for their recommendation of preliminary and final approval.
Sure. So with regard to the document that was produced and is marked as A1, so township engineers reviewed this and will have, I mean, are there any outstanding comments or issues that need to be addressed with regard to the proposed circulation that we've been discussing tonight?
Yes, they've all been addressed and satisfied their concerns with regard
Okay.
to that.
Just one comment. The area of where you have the car coming in and comes to a stop and trying to make that first turn is either going to be a large amount of accidents or damage done to the cars.
Yeah, that'll be
Too
accurate.
sharp of a turn.
It's sharp, but it's a 90-degree turn. If you're parking in space 6, you know, if you have to, you may have to pull up, back up a little bit, and then pull into that space to get into it. But again, it's 12 parking spaces, and it's not a high turnover volume type of parking situation where I don't anticipate any issues with cars backing out and becoming a hazard in that respect.
Is that like, I mean, and no, this is getting into the nitty gritty, but just off of my colleagues' comments, anyway, you guys can just put up like a gate or something, a fence of some kind, just because I'd like to believe that everyone is great at parking. But, you know, if whoever's parking in spot 6 is, you know, a little bit lopsided with their parking and the back of the car is sticking out, like, is there any way to just put up like some type of a barrier just to preserve that, that turn aisle, if that makes sense? Specifically on the edge of where you have it marked.
Yeah, I mean, we're anticipating striping that and
Well, that's what I'm saying. If any type of physical barrier, because like I said,
Know if you'd want a physical barrier for your colleagues' comments about we don't want the cars, if they're making a sharper turn, to hit anything.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
my
thought you were,
my comment is if somebody's bad at parking.
yeah, well, they'll be bad at parking, but I think with the idea that striping that will, you know, and it's not a parking area, hopefully they park in their spot and not miss it. You know what I mean? But yeah.
The other thing is to make sure you have the visibility to see, be able to see.
Yeah.
making the turn.
I'd rather not have other kind of things, but we do have, are we going to put stops at each one probably, or,
yeah,
so they don't run into the wall, so to speak? There'll be a curb stop or bollards at the end of each space.
And it's a one-way circulation.
And,
Okay.
which is the other reason this changed, is that was the recommendation both by the Planning Commission and Panoni to change this to the one-way circulation, because originally where we thought we can get the egress out at Shelbourne, there was a possibility of two-way. Now this is just safer with the angled parking all the way around, one way in, one way out.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else?
All right, so I think that's it for the board's questions. Do we have any public comment related to this application? Nope. Yep, please come on up.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth?
Yes,
Your name?
Laura Wentz. Hi, I just did share your concerns about the suggested vehicles on the Garrett and Walnut Street, because on Garrett Road, what would be a shoulder is actually a turn lane onto Walnut, and there is no shoulder on Walnut. A&E also has a warehouse right across the street. So I'm curious for those who are parking in their lot, how are they transporting, if they're unloading a truck, how are they transporting the stuff to the apartments? Just something to be concerned about, make sure that there's an easy flow for them. But I shared your concerns, just wanted to bring that up. But I do appreciate the concept happening in the township, so.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I can answer that part of that question, which is one of the things that we have to do, and one of the things that we've been going back and forth with township staff is we are going to need to get a PennDOT permit. The PennDOT permit is because we are going to stripe the crosswalk across Walnut, and we're also going to improve the handicap accessibility ramp. So there'll be ramps in side crosswalk and a ramp up to our property, and I think on the Garrett Road sides as well. So that was something the applicant probably maybe didn't have to do, especially across the street, but part of improving this whole kind of area and luckily fit some of those concerns. We have to go to PennDOT, get a permit for those improvements, and we're going to install those as part of this project. So, and I think we're even further down, right? On Shelbourne as well. So,
Would you, oh, I guess I can't talk. Well.
If you have a question, go ahead.
Would you be amenable if we add that just as a condition for approval, that to do those improvements that you just described?
they're already part of our land development approval, but yes, no problem.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One other quick question I have related to the tenant and gas meter on the wall. How secure and protected are they?
Going to be in a room, in a locked room?
Look at parking space 10.
See where they label the architect label.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not sure exactly what the architect's intent was there, what that exactly
It
means.
won't be 27 gas.
Yeah, there won't be
I think that
27,
might
because
just
it'll
more of a
be,
note.
It just, maybe previous.
because you're not going to have, it's going to be one owner,
Yes.
one meter for
It's
the,
gonna be
maybe
1 meter.
3 if you include the retail, one for the residential and one for each retail at most, but
There'll be no gas here.
there's internal mechanicals within the building, right behind retail number 2. So I imagine any of that, those facilities would be within that area of the building.
Are there going to be any charging meters for electronic charging?
Honestly, I don't think we've proposed any electric or EV-ready spaces inside. But again, because we don't know how they're going to be assigned yet. It doesn't mean maybe we could consider the concept of creating 1 or 2 EV-ready, which means if we do get people who are assigned those space with electric vehicles, we'll assign them the ones with that could have the meters installed or have the electric charging installed. But I think if we were going to do that,
I don't think we'll do this, no.
okay, but we'd be limited to like 12, space 1 and 12.
It's not required to charge.
I know, and it's just hard to tell whether it'll become an issue, but
It's not required to, put the charging machine. I mean, we are not doing that as charging in this place. They has to go outside to charging and put the car here. So we are not putting a charging meter there.
Are you negotiating with A&E to have a charging station at
No.
their
No.
facility?
No, they don't have any charging station there.
I think we cut off folks in the middle of public comment. Is there any other public comment? Yes, please come on up.
Hello. James Mullen. Yes. So I have a question. The 11 parking spaces, which are about half of the spaces, how long does that agreement last?
So pursuant to Exhibit A4, this is a 10-year lease.
So what happens when that expires if they don't renew it? Then at that point, it's shoot out the OK corral, or, I mean, half the parking spaces are contingent on those, and
Technically,
there's 4 more spaces yet to be had. I mean, this building had a parking lot, the prior owner sold it, and now people are trying to squeeze this building into a use that seems like there's more squeezing than natural fit. So what happens at that 10-year mark?
Either the applicant would renew the lease, get another lease, or let it expire. We can't control that as of right now, and I'm not sure if the applicant has a response to that.
Right, but if it's getting approved, only that's been the lease, the spaces requirement, it seems like an awful weak footing to, I'm not saying anything's approved, I'm just saying if it was approved, it seems like an awful weak footing for half of the parking spaces.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they're asking for the relief. If they were instead agreeing to some sort of a easement that existed in perpetuity, then technically speaking, the applicant wouldn't need a relief at all. So because it's a lease and not something like an easement, that's why they're here tonight.
Okay, it's just, I know people that live right behind there, and there's no parking anywhere around there. It's a mess for parking.
Thank you very much. Is there any further public comment tonight? Okay, seeing none. Would the applicant like to make any brief statement in closing?
Yeah, just real brief. I just wanted to remind the board that part of the relief that was granted previously was a special exception for this being a transit-oriented development, that a lot of the parking, we don't believe, and the ordinance provides for the reduction in parking due to the proximity to public transportation, especially the rail system, the bus system, as well as there are municipal lots within the area as well. So we don't anticipate, I think the fact that we're able to provide any parking on the site and we have the lease for the long-term lease for the off-site parking will really satisfy just about everything we need for this location. So
Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll close the record, and I believe the board will take a moment to discuss the application in executive session. So we'll go for a brief recess. All right, the board is back from its executive session where we discussed legal issues relating to the application. Thank you for your patience. So at this point, I have a suggested motion that I would like to make, which would be to approve application number 9-1 of 25, specifically to approve the variance to allow a multifamily residential use, to permit 2 principal uses on 1 lot, to permit 12 on-site parking spaces, to permit a maximum building height of 44 feet. A variance that was amended tonight for a loading zone of 11 feet by 22 feet, and a special exception to allow the use of the transit access credit to reduce parking by 11 spaces. This would be conditioned upon applicant complying with, or rather, making the proposed structure and the proposed additions substantially compliant with the architecturals provided in Exhibit A3, as well as conditioned upon the applicant proceeding forward with the offered off-site improvements, namely to the crosswalk along Walnut and the modifications to the existing handicap ramps. That would be the motion, if anyone would, if any board member would care to make that.
I'd like to make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Congratulations, your relief is approved. You'll receive a written decision within 45 days. Thank you. Have a good night. All right, the next item on the agenda is project number 9-5 of 25, Streams of Joy Church, for the property located at 6801 Ludlow Street. Is there any member of the public who would like to request party status as related to this application? All right, seeing none, at this time I'm going to mark a few exhibits here. We're going to mark ZHB1 is going to be the application, ZHB2, the application packet rather. ZHB2 is the proof of posting, and exhibit ZHB3 is the proof of publication. Good evening, Mr. McCreesh.
Good evening. Good to see you. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. If you could just swear your witnesses in first and then take it away.
Sure.
Can you go up to the microphone and please spell that?
Israel, Israel, Olumese, Olumese.
First name Taye, Taiye. Last name Iyasere, Iyasere.
Yes, okay. Mr. Olamusi?
Yes, sir.
Olamusi, I'm sorry. He is the pastor of the Streams of Joy Church, which is a Pentecostal church. I guess their main church, they have a church in Houston and then out of Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
And Ty is the realtor involved in the transaction. This is right on Ludlow, on the corner of Ludlow and Kent. And on the second floor, they want to have their church. He presently has a church. He's in the Germantown area of Philadelphia, but and they have about 30 members, and about 20 of them actually live in Upper Darby. So it's more convenient for most of the congregation to come to Upper Darby rather than all the way up to Germantown. They only have one service per week on Sunday. What'd you say, 10 to 12:30?
10 to 12:30.
10 to 12:30 a.m. or noon or p.m., 10 to 12:30 p.m. They have choir practice for an hour on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Just 1 or 2 hours?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Tentative, yeah.
What time is that?
From 6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Yes.
And they have been discussing a midweek service on Thursdays, but right now they aren't doing that. But that would be Thursday, maybe 6 to 8, that they might plan to use it in the future.
Yes.
When it's not being when they don't have service, Mr. Olmusi will use it as his office for the church, but he's the only person in the office. There are no other employees, so it would just be him. Ty sent some photographs to Josh today. You can see the space is mostly an open space. It's about 10,000 square feet on the second floor. There's a couple side rooms for like storage and things like that. But they won't be doing any construction. They would just be cleaning it up and putting a stage or altar for the pastor to speak. And parking, you can see from the photos, there is metered parking right outside. Taye can speak a little bit more about the parking. There is the SEPTA parking lot, which is directly across on Market Street, which is just one off of Ludlow. This municipal lot right here is within walking distance, is not far. And there's also Sunday morning, we don't think there's a big need or big demand for parking in that area.
Correct.
And whatever use they would have for 30 families would be less, obviously, than an office with a lot of employees. Like you can see, it used to be some sort of a pharmaceutical laboratory, I'm sure, with more employees, and that would have a greater parking need than the church. But again, if you have any questions of the pastor or Ty, the realtor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McCreesh. Real quick, we're going to mark the photographs that you supplied as Exhibit A1. And if you could just have your applicant just attest to your statements, then we'll ask some questions.
Yes, Pastor, you heard everything I said right now?
Yes, sir.
And you would agree that everything I said was true?
Yes, sir.
And that if you were called to testify, you would adopt that as your own words?
Correct, sir.
Okay. And then if they have any more.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. Pastor. Do we have any questions from the board?
Yep. So first question, have there been any considerations of using the 69th Street Parker shopping, oh my God, what is it called? It's the 69th Street Shoppers Lot, which is up on, what is that? Chestnut. So the entrance is on Chestnut. It's like a 3-story parking garage, and then they don't have to cross mark it. So I guess the question is, has there been any conversations with the property managers to possibly get an agreement? Okay.
There is sufficient parking, street parking around the perimeter of the building.
Oh, sorry.
There is sufficient parking around the perimeter of the building, metered parking, so that will be more convenient. Because if they have to use that or the parking lot that you described, they would have to walk a little bit of distances.
I guess I know you guys have mentioned you only have about 30 members in your congregation.
Yes, sir.
The space that you're asking for could hold a lot more, which is why there's a 50 parking spot requirement. So from our zoning perspective, just to give some clarity, the reason why we're requesting those parking spots is because of the possibility that it could always expand and then, you don't have enough parking. So since you only have 30 members in your congregation, I don't even think I can ask that actually. I'm gonna hold off for now and wait on that one. My other question is, there's also a parking lot that is kind of sat abandoned on Heather Road. Also, I believe owned and operated by the 69th Street property managers. I'd encourage you to reach out to them about the possibility of leasing that space because it's a completely abandoned and empty parking lot that's right by your facility that could be dedicated just for you.
Can you repeat the address, please?
Yeah, it's on Heather Road, so it's literally the block right behind you. Because I think the one thing that I want to be, some of these streets, especially these residential streets, do have residential parking permits. And parking is a very big issue, as you can imagine, in this neighborhood. So we just want to make sure to balance everybody's needs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Council, I know we're talking about the second floor for this use. Is your lease for the entire building or just for the second floor?
Just a second.
Just a second.
Does the board have any further questions? All right. Is there any public comment related to application 9-525? Seeing none, does the applicant have anything else they'd like to offer?
No.
Is the board sure there's no more questions? Yeah, sure. Well, we're going to take a brief recess and go into executive session. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. The board has just returned from a brief executive session. And actually, an issue came up, and I believe one of our board members has a question about a certain aspect of your church.
I wanted to ask, in terms of food, do you prepare, cook, or serve food?
So we don't do that, sir.
That's what I wanted to find out.
Thanks, sir.
All right. So with that, I believe we'll close the record, and I believe a motion will be appropriate.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Your application's been approved.
Thank you very much.
You'll get a written decision within 45 days, and thank you for waiting around. I hope you have a good night.
You're welcome. And they are going to look into thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
So, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So this time, we've got our final application of the night, number 6-3 of 25 for Bachelor Brothers Inc. Funeral Services at 3215 Garrett Road. See, there are some members of the public here this evening. Would anyone like to request party status related to application 6-3 of 25? All right, seeing none. At this point, I'm going to mark a few exhibits here. ZHB 1 is going to be the application package. ZHB 2 is the proof of posting, and ZHB 3 is the proof of publication. And I see I've got a packet of applicant exhibits here, which are going to be exhibits A1 through A7. I think at this point it might be appropriate to swear in any witnesses who will be testifying.
Yes, that'll be Ron Salvatore and Vaughn Green.
Perfect.
My name is Ron Salvatore. S is in Sam, A-L, V is in Victor, A-T-O-R-E.
My name is Vaughn Green with an E on the end, funeral director. V-A-U-G-H-N.
Thank you very much. Mr. Long, good evening. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And yeah, similar to what the others have done, I'll try to make a brief presentation, and then my witnesses are available for questions if you guys have any. Basically, what we're asking for is to allow a small self-contained cremation unit to be installed in a garage on the property. If you look at some of the exhibits we presented, I believe it's A3 are the Google Maps photos. If you see, there's the Bachelor Brothers Funeral Home main building. There's a parking lot, and across the parking lot, there's a bay of about 4 garages. What they would like to do is install a small cremation unit in that garage. The reason for that is because the industry has been changing with the funeral business. Mr. Green will tell you that he's been in the business since he was 15 years old. He's owned Vaughn Green Funeral Homes and other funeral homes since 1996. This past year, correct me if I'm wrong, is it this past year that cremations become the majority?
Yes.
Okay. So within this past year, cremation's been growing over the last few years, decade, and this year it surpassed regular burial as the preferred means and majority means of disposition of family members. And so the industry is going this way. They are running into issues with having to have, send family members off-site to third parties to do the cremation services. So they'd like to be able to have this unit on site. It will, like I said, it's if you're looking at the garages, there's a van parked immediately in front of the far right garage. That's the garage bay that butts up against the septic tracks on the next to the property. That's the one that would have the unit inside it. As you wouldn't see it from the outside.
The only thing you might see is there's going to be an exhaust fan or pipe that would stick out the roof maybe a couple of feet. Mr. Salvatore is from Matthews International. That's the company that develops and builds these things. He went to the site today and confirmed it would stay under that 15-foot threshold for accessory structures based on his assessment. Obviously, if for some reason DEP would require them to go higher than that, we would have to come back to the board for a height variance. But at this point, based on that assessment, we would be within that. The main thing to remember with these things, and right now, the way the ordinance is written, cremation and crematoriums are only allowed in the C4 district, which is a more sort of industrial commercial district. These really are, they're quiet. They're not noiseless, but they're quiet. It'll be self-contained within a garage. They have to meet stringent environmental regulations as within our packet is Mr. Salvatore's presentation, which states that they've installed approximately 125 of these around the state of Pennsylvania. They're well within the confines and regulations by DEP, as well as they meet California's air and environmental standards, which are more stringent than Pennsylvania's. So these are not, I think a lot of people, when they think crematorium, they're thinking big, giant mass units that are belching smoke and things like that. It's really not what's going on here. One of the things that Mr. Salvatore likes to say is that, while this thing is going to be operating, there's going to be other sensitive services that are going to be happening on site. So they don't want anything that's going to be loud, obnoxious, going to disturb anyone, because they may be having services or families, saying goodbye to loved ones, et cetera, on site. So that's really the idea behind it. This property it's in the C1 commercial district. As I said, one side of it butts up against SEPTA train tracks. Garrett Road is on the other side. The only residential property, if you're looking at those photos, and is a white house, which we believe to be residential across the street. It's set back off the street. Otherwise, they're pretty much surrounded by commercial or otherwise. I think of what else. One of the issues and concerns that they have regarding sending family members off-site is what they call chain of custody, ensuring that the family member that you're sending off-site, you're getting back from that. And as this increases and as these off-site places are getting more and more volume, that's obviously a concern. They're not intending to do any other. They're not intending to do this for any other funeral homes. They do have their own funeral home in Philadelphia as well as this one. It would be potentially for those two funeral homes, their owned funeral homes. It would not be they would not be cooperating with any other funeral homes in the area to do this. It's really a small operation just to allow them to be able to do this and provide this service for their constituents and their clients. It's also not a matter of being more profitable. They're just trying to meet their clients where they're at and what they really want and their needs. In fact, as they would testify, cremation is in fact less profitable. If you think about it, there's less involved. You're not dealing with caskets and all these other things that go into a traditional burial. But it's really just about meeting the needs of the community that they serve, which is within this township. Just trying to think if there's anything else. Anything else you want to add, guys?
I don't know unless the board has questions.
Okay.
Have they been sworn?
So at this point, Mr. Long, perhaps you can have your witnesses attest to your statements, and I believe the board will have a few questions for them.
Yeah. Gentlemen, you heard me testify just now, or not testify. You heard me give a presentation just now, correct?
Yes.
All right. And was everything I said in that presentation accurate to the best of your knowledge?
It was right on point.
Yes.
All right. And if you were to ask to testify, those would have been essentially the same things you would have testified to?
Yes.
All right, so I have a few questions before I'll open up to the board. In terms of the proposed usage of the crematorium, how often does the applicant propose or intend to use that? How many cremations per day, per week, per month, that sort of thing?
And our current volume,
Use the mic.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just step up and make sure.
At our current volume, we probably would be using the crematory 2 to 3 days a week.
And when you would use it 2 to 3 days a week?
We're talking 2 or 3 cremations per week.
Okay, that was my next question. All right, and then I think this one's for Mr. Salvatore. I'm just curious if you can give the board an idea of, you know, if someone's a local resident or if someone's walking by, what would the difference in the property be, whether it's visually, whether it's, you know, what difference would there be pre-installation of this machine and pre-use of this machine and while it's being used, just from a lay perspective?
The reality would be very little difference. The only thing, as council has indicated, is there's a what we call an exhaust stack. That and an air vent to allow fresh air into the room are really the only two physical changes to the site. So, and as council indicated, most of these, this is actually a little bit different than most of our projects. Most go into the funeral home proper because a lot of times the garages are attached or there's space within the confines of the location. So normally we're operating these within the structure of the funeral home while visitations and services are being conducted. So the impact or what may be noticeable to the public is nothing. There is no difference.
Thank you very much. And at this point, I think the board may have some questions.
What are those garages used for now?
They were used to accommodate hearses and limousines.
Okay, and you're proposing the location of this is the garage that's closest to the train tracks?
Yes, correct.
So outside of the, I guess, installation of whatever the equipment itself is, what other, if any, like physical changes need to be made to the garage itself?
So can you rephrase your question or ask it again, please? Just to make sure I understand it before I answer.
I'll ask it again. Outside of outside of the equipment itself going into the space, what are the other are there any other physical changes that need to happen to the garage to accommodate the equipment?
Other than, as I shared, the stack and the air vent, there will be internal changes just in terms of cosmetics. We're probably going to change the ceiling a little bit to give a little bit more space, but it would be nothing from the exterior, but there would be some interior improvements to change it from, in essence, a garage into something that if a family wished to participate in the ceremony, it's a bit more comfortable for them.
Okay. And so what's the plan on like securing this kind of equipment? Because right now it's just a garage door, right? That go like a typical garage door that would go up and slide up and come down like attached to a house. Is that the security that we're envisioning for this kind of equipment, or what do we?
Well, there are multiple garage doors now, and so at least 2 of those garage doors would be blocked off so that they would no longer be garage doors, so there wouldn't be access to opening and closing. In terms of the entrance, how we're going to get remains physically in the building, yeah, the door is going to be secured. The door is going to be locked. They'll have a security system there. They'll have a video surveillance system there, which is what we have there now.
In the garage?
Well, we have a video surveillance system, and you can see the garage from the video system. Currently, there is not a alarm system on the garage door. The garage door locks. There's not an alarm door on it, and it's not the type of security door that we would probably have to put in place for vehicles versus having human remains on the inside.
The implication being that the human remains need a higher level of security, right? Okay,
Exactly.
I'm just making, okay. I guess my next question is why not the main building? Because I think you were testifying earlier that usually that's what you guys do. In this case, why? Because it's a pretty big building. So why not? Why did you choose to put in the garage and not the main building?
Yeah, there's just not an appropriate way of getting equipment into that existing building, nor is there really a spot that would be conducive to what the vision needs to be for this. So in this application, the garage is, I'll go back one. Up until probably 25 years ago, most facilities literally just put it in a garage, and that remained a garage. This is now becoming, the movement has become to create what we would call in our profession a cremation center. So that's why this space would lend itself with some cosmetic improvements to allow families to, again, to participate in that ceremony. So that's really why this location was chosen, rather than trying to install it in that building. Plus, then now I have a stack that is higher than the height of the existing building. That's going to be a challenge because of the height and the weight.
Meaning with the main building.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because, and just to clarify, because the stack has to go above whatever building it's in, obviously.
Correct. Yeah, it would have to extend based on that building. It would be, because it looks like there's a parapet wall that goes around the top, and we would have to be above that parapet wall. The weight alone would be a bit challenging from an engineering standpoint. So it just, the site's just not conducive for that.
Okay. So, okay. Do you have any, so you kind of mentioned it a little bit that you wanted to do some improvements to the garage, and it sounds like we're turning the garage more so into an actual accessory building of some sort, not necessarily, it's not going to remain a garage at the end of the day.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, some of it will be, correct?
Well, okay.
You're
Oh,
gonna
he said-
convert two of the bays to be part of this.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll still have to have an entrance where you can get the car physically in the building and close the door. You don't want anything viewed from the street. So in terms of storing hearses and limousines there, we probably won't be doing that, but there will be a portion of the garage that remains an entryway for the vehicles to be able to egress and get out the building.
So you still have like a portion that's a garage, but like the rest of it, you're going to be transforming it basically into an accessory building.
Correct.
Do you have any floor plans or any like draft sketches of what you're envisioning this accessory building to look like?
Yeah, I don't think they've gotten to that point because we're
Okay.
trying to get this first.
Fair.
And I don't know that any zoning would be implicated by any of that, because it would just be some internal changes to the building.
Well, I think it would matter in the case that we talked about. You mentioned a little bit about a reception room, and that could count as retail space, like actual commercial space, which would then be added to the floor print. So there is some implications that we might ask to see something. But other than that, I do have a couple other questions. Could you just walk me through, I know our solicitor mentioned a little bit to kind of walk us through the impact. I'm going to ask a bunch of just consecutive questions. You can just answer them yes or no if you want, or you can just provide detail, right? Like, I just want to get some details, not just for myself, but for the residents, et cetera, so they have some clarity. Related to smell, you don't expect this to produce any type of smells or odors, et cetera?
Correct.
Okay. Related to site, right? I think from reading the document, and I'm just confirming, you don't intend for there to be really any type of visual smoke that's put off from the exhaust.
That is correct.
Okay. Sound, you mentioned that, it's not, silent, but it is quiet. Is it your intention that because it's near the trolley tracks, that there's nobody really abutting that area, that it would be mostly muted by?
No, it's a good question. No, we could put it in any of the bays and the impact would be the exact same.
Okay.
The noise is subjective. That's why it's hard to articulate what it would be. But if let's just say that if we were in the room while it's operating, we would be able to converse at basically the same level we're conversing now. within the confines of the building.
I mean, I expect it to probably produce noise, but for the residential properties that are on the other side of the track, they shouldn't notice any major noise.
No.
Okay. I think that's it for right now, but I might come back.
Just, and if I may ask Mr. Salvatore a couple of things. Yeah, in his presentation that's in the packet, you stated, you gave some examples of other units that are around, correct?
Yes.
All right. And obviously you can't say for everybody, but essentially the likelihood is that people have probably driven by, walked by one of these units somewhere and not even realized it's there, correct?
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Again, most of these, probably 80, 85, almost 90% of all new facilities are located on funeral home property. And they're operating, there's probably within a 30-minute drive, I don't know how many total there are, but I gave you some examples of just a few of them that are located on funeral home property within about a 30-mile or 30-minute radius. So this would be considered a typical location.
So you guys, as Matthews International, now you're only one company within the industry, but you're really primarily anymore installing these on funeral home properties as accessory uses, correct?
That is correct.
You're not going out and building big crematoriums that are servicing whole regions anymore?
There's a few of those on a national basis, but for the most part, it's the small independent funeral director, as Mr. Green is, that are installing these, again, to serve this community.
What are the, to consider with that, what are the disposal requirements after using I guess the crematorium equipment? And how do you envision doing that, like from, like across the parking lot, I guess?
I'm trying to
Is
make
there
sure
any-
I'm understanding the question.
You know what I'm trying to.
I guess if you can briefly, I guess, take us through the process of how you plan to operate this crematorium in terms of when you take a decedent and use the facility and eventually produce cremated remains. Like, how, generally speaking, do you envision that working?
Okay. When the person is taken to the crematory, there's a checklist that we'll go through to make sure that the person that we're actually going to be cremating is in fact the right person. So there's a list of steps from the funeral home to the time they get to the crematory that we go through. There's mechanical equipment there that has to be at a certain temperature before you decide to place the person in the retort. Once the person is placed in the retort, you have access to Matthews International out of town, who has persons 24 hours a day monitoring the equipment, in addition to the cremation operator that's working at the crematory. If there are changes or challenges, if there are issues with the cremation cycle with that particular cremation, we'll get a phone call from Matthews International, letting us know, or if we have concerns, we have the ability to call them. So I guess we have 24-hour support that we get from that particular company. Once the cremation is completed, then you go through the process of removing the cremains from the retort. And then there's a list of steps from there where the cremains go from where they are to the cooling table to ultimately being placed in some type of urn or some type of container to get back to the family. And there are instances, I heard the gentleman mentioning reception area. That is because some religious or some faiths, they want to participate in the process, so they will actually, and that is one of the reasons why it's imperative for us to be able to do these things on site and to not have to switch people from location to location to location, because some family members want to come, they want to see their family member actually placed in the retort. You have requests where people want to actually push the actual button. Sometimes there are prayers that are prayed there before the person is placed in the retort. And so those are the improvements that we're making, because we don't want to take somebody into a garage to do that. There has to be some retrofitting of that building to make it look aesthetically presentable for somebody, a grieving family, to come in to participate in the final farewell for their loved one. And then there are a list of protocols and stopgaps, because again, one of the key things is you want to make sure that the person that you're cremating is in fact the right person. One of the biggest challenges when you have to outsource that is, listen, I have confidence in the company that I call to do that, but once that decedent is out of my care and he is in someone else's care, then I have to trust the integrity of that particular vendor to provide the services that we're paying them for, and then ultimately go back and retrieve the cremains, bring them back before we can give them to the family. It's just a lengthy process, and it's stressful for a family because, you know, you call Bachelor Brothers Funeral Service to provide this service. Now Bachelor Brothers Funeral Services, because we can't produce and provide this service in-house, I have to call an outside vendor that the family's not even familiar with. So it's stressful for a family to go through this process and not really have the complete confidence that their family member is always being handled by the vendor that they trust with those services. Retort. R-E-T-O-R-T.
And I don't know if this is one of the things you were getting at, is also how you're not going to be carting on a open cart or something like that, a family member across the parking lot.
No.
That would be, how would you handle getting them from the main building out to theirs? You know, how does that handle?
The hearse is going to be backed into the garage space, which, take it into the building, the door closed, so that you don't want people in the parking lot, you don't want people in the street to see what's going on behind those doors. So you back the hearse into the building, you close the door, and you unload and do what you have to do in there, and the only person that sees that is, you know, employees of the funeral home.
At the end of the process, when the remains that would be provided to the family is generated, is there any are all the remains provided to the family, or is there remains that is discarded in any way?
No, we do
Okay.
not discard.
That's what
100% of the remains goes back to the family.
Okay, so there's no, from that, I guess I'll call it, what did you call it, like center, like family center, or from the family center at the end of the process, it's basically one-way traffic. There's no remains coming back out of there except with the family.
I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. If you could repeat that for me.
After the cremation process, the remains are generated, that you're saying that you're providing some sort of like urn or something for the family,
Yes.
right? My question is there any other remains outside of what's provided to the family after the process that needs to be discarded from that
No.
facility?
Everything is, listen, if they send Mrs. Jane Doe to me, once Mrs. Jane Doe is cremated, 100% of Mrs. Jane Doe is going back to Miss Jane Doe's family.
And you're a licensed funeral home, correct?
In multiple states, yes, sir.
And so therefore, a lot of these processes are also regulated by the state and how you handle them. You have to be a licensed licensed funeral home director, correct?
Not only a licensed funeral director, but in order to provide these services, you have to have people on staff that are licensed cremation operators.
And I want to be clear, I'm not implying that you would be doing something outside of what you would be supposed. I'm just not familiar with the process. And I want to, my follow-up question would have been like, well, how do you handle disposal from that facility so it's not in the view of the public, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that's what I was getting at, not that you're doing
I didn't
anything
take it that
outside,
way.
out of bounds or anything like that.
Right.
This is a question for the Matthews Environmental Solutions. So just some of the examples you provided, and I think like one of them is actually, I just want to get confirmation. The Kavanaugh Funeral Home and Media, you're talking about the machine that you're installing at this funeral home is the same machine that is currently operating at the Kavanaugh Funeral Home in Media, the one that's, well, it was Iron Hill Brewery, but now it is not. But it's that same facility that's right next to one of the major economic corridors.
Yeah, I've not been to that location, so I don't know the outlying area, but that is on our database. That is the exact same model. This would just be, of course, a newer version
Okay.
of that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions from the board? Is there any public comment related to this application?
Yes, there is.
Well, come on up, sir, and be sworn in.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Robert Antorno. Yes. What's that, ma'am?
What's your name again?
Robert Yantorno.
Can you spell your last name?
Yantorno. Okay. As a resident of Drexel Hill, and in the past 8 months, I've been going to meet a lot of my fellow neighbors in the 3rd District in Drexel Hill. When this was brought to our attention that they were planning on putting in a crematorium in the neighborhood, well, it's been a hot button topic. Now, I'm sure that they made some advances, okay, but if it was a self-contained, there wouldn't be a stack for the vapors, the carcinogens, the lead into people's teeth wouldn't be emanated. It would be kept right there. The residents that I spoke with have said that their concerns that the big concern is with the children, because catty corner from where the funeral home is Holy Child School, Catholic school, the Catholics, and a little bit down the street a little bit, another Catholic school, St. Andrews, kids, okay. The people I spoke with are not, and there was a lot, are not happy with the possibility of a crematorium and the associated byproduct in their neighborhood, in their home. I mean, right on the other side of those train tracks, all homes. Couple of doors down, pizzeria. I'm not getting pizza there anymore if it goes in. But that aside, the residents there, they're a little different than the rest of the part of Upper Darby. They're good people. Not saying that, but the district there that representing it's a very wealthy and a very large district in Upper Darby Township, and they have these concerns, and they're like, well, if they're doing so many this and that. I said, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll do a little research. Okay, if it was one or two. So I have past couple of months. I'd love to question. The place looks closed. I don't ever see anybody there. So that brings me to think, well, there's two things happening here, okay? I wasn't a cop for over 40 years and become head of detectives by being an idiot. One is, well, if there's not a lot of people here, what's going to happen? Are they going to be bringing people in from outside to cremate them, which means a revolving friggin' door, or, which would be better, would this be a great selling point for a failing business for somebody to come inside and buy? Because now we're doing cremation. Let's change that. Let's go to variance. Okay. Now, I hate to see anybody falling on bad times. My only concern is the residents. And I will tell you, there are a lot. And they know that you guys are appointed, by the current administration, and they're going to be looking to see how you respond to this. And that's just a fact. So I want to thank you for your time, folks, and hopefully you make the right decision.
I'm confused.
there any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, if the applicant would like to address any of those remarks, that's, sure.
Comments. And I'll have Mr. Salvatore handle that, some of this. The gentleman made comments about what's coming out of the stack. Can you speak to that to a degree?
The reality is, these are highly regulated by your Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. We cannot do anything. We can't build a unit, we can't ship a unit, we cannot do anything until DEP has completed their evaluation and approved the application. We can't submit an application until local zoning has been satisfied. So it's a two-part process. The Pennsylvania regulations are the same regulations as pretty much all the other states. They're highly, highly regulated. Our equipment meets or exceeds all of Pennsylvania's requirements, and we meet or exceed all those of the other states, including California. So from a regulatory standpoint, they have determined that these are permitted uses for this application, regardless of location. So that's about it. That's the best way I can explain it. And I was being conservative at 125. There's more than that, but I wasn't going to try to run a database search of all the units we have within the Commonwealth. And we have units that have been here since I would probably say the 1970s, that are still operating under their permit conditions without an issue.
And suffice to say, are these units cheap?
No, this is a large investment, especially when you get into renovation of a building. It's a major investment into the future of the business.
All right, and then Mr. Green address a couple of things as well. The gentleman brought up the idea of lead in people's teeth or other things that might be on someone's body that could lead to contaminants or something of that nature. Can you speak to that as to what you do to handle that?
Yeah, when you know that the mode of disposition is going to be cremation, then things like some fillings, pacemakers, those things are removed before that person is taken to the crematory.
All right, and could you speak a bit to the operation of your business, since there were comments about whether or not it's really operating?
Well, we're a long ways away from closing. We've been in this geography for about 3 years. I'd like to think, according to my accountant, that we're doing pretty well. In addition to that, someone is physically at the building 6 days a week from 9 to 5, and some days later. I don't know who's going by the building, knocking on the door, trying to find out who's present in the building, but we're open and we're doing well, and we're just trying to do the best we can to serve the people that entrust their loved ones to our care.
And this is a significant investment that you're making in the business.
Yes.
Not with the intention of selling, but with the intention of conducting your business and continuing.
With the intention of serving, yes.
No further questions.
All right. Can I add one comment? Yeah, of course. So with respect to the dental amalgams, the amount of, first of the amount of usage of the old mercury or silver filling is almost non-existent today. Pennsylvania, and nor does any other state, require the fillings to be removed. The US EPA estimates that crematories account for less than 1/10 of 1% of mercury emissions. Lamp breakage, fireplaces because wood is naturally occurring in wood. Combustion sources like boilers, large incineration systems are the greatest sources of mercury amalgams. We are the smallest source that EPA even recognizes. So there are no requirements to move any to remove any dental amalgams. It's not a requirement of Pennsylvania or any other state within our country. So just keep that in mind. And those numbers, whatever the emissions that EPA has estimated, continue to decline because most of us, I had mercury amalgams from 30, 40 years ago. Those have been replaced by composites that probably most of you have now. So it's a complete non-issue. I just want to stress that. If it were an issue, it would be regulated by the state, and the state does not regulate that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Is there any further public comment at this time? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the record and retire to executive session. Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for your patience. The board has returned from a brief executive session to discuss legal issues related to the application. And at this point, I have a suggested motion that the board may want to consider, which would be a motion to grant the request of relief to permit a crematorium as an accessory use to a funeral home, conditioned upon use of the crematory being accessory to the funeral home on the parcel, and that there being no cremations for third-party funeral homes that are unaffiliated with the principal funeral home on the lot or the owner or operator thereof. That would be the proposed motion, if any board member would like to make that motion.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations, your relief has been approved. You'll get a written decision within 45 days. Hope you have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time.
All right. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Beautiful.
Yeah.